Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to explain a topic that so many of us experience, but maybe don't fully understand. We live in this age of just constant connection, right? At any moment, we can see what hundreds, even thousands of people are up to. But have you ever noticed that sometimes after all that scrolling and connecting, you actually feel more alone? It's this weird paradox, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We'll look at how these platforms are literally designed to hook us, what's going on inside our brains when we scroll, and why this feeling of digital loneliness has become a really serious health concern.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a feeling that I bet is super familiar. You've got a few minutes to spare, so you pull out your phone, open an app, and you just start scrolling. And before you know it, what felt like 5 minutes has turned into 45. You finally look up from your screen and you're hit with this strange kind of hollow feeling. You've just seen highlights from hundreds of lives, but you don't feel connected at all. In fact, you might actually feel a little bit lonelier than you did before. Well, that feeling? It isn't a mistake. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. Let's break down exactly why that is.
You see, that empty feeling you get isn't really your fault. It's the intended outcome of a very carefully designed digital environment. Social media platforms, at their core, are engineered for one main goal: to capture and hold on to your attention for as long as humanly possible. Honestly, your well-being often comes second to your engagement. So let's pull back the curtain a little bit and look at the psychological mechanics they use to keep us all scrolling.
Now this is where it gets really clever. First up, you've got infinite scroll. Think about it. A book has a final page, a movie has credits. There's a natural stopping point. But with infinite scroll, there is no end. It just keeps feeding you content, removing any signal to your brain that it might be time to stop. Then you have the pull to refresh gesture. This is literally designed to mimic a slot machine. You pull the lever, and maybe you get a reward, a new like, a comment, a message. It's that unpredictability that makes gambling so addictive, and it's built right into your feed. And of course, auto-playing videos just take the choice right out of your hands, seamlessly pulling you from one thing to the next. All of this combines to create what's known as a variable reward schedule. You never know what's coming next, so you just keep pulling that lever, keep scrolling, hunting for that next little reward. So all of these design tricks are targeting one key chemical messenger in your brain: dopamine. Now, a lot of people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. It's really the chemical of anticipation and motivation. It's the part of your brain that says, hey, that might be good, do it again. So every time you see a notification pop up or pull to refresh your feed, your brain gets a tiny little hit of dopamine. It's not from the content itself, but from the possibility of a reward. And this creates a really powerful loop that drives you to keep seeking. But as we're about to see, this kind of reward is basically junk food for our social brains. It might taste good for a second, but it leaves us feeling completely empty.
And this right here is where the real problem begins. This whole cycle of chasing dopamine hits is in direct conflict with what our brains actually need to feel truly connected. You have to remember, our brains are basically ancient hardware. They evolved over hundreds of thousands of years for real, face-to-face, in-person interaction. And now, we're trying to run this brand new, super fast digital software on that ancient hardware. And, well, it's causing a major system crash.
This chart just lays out the mismatch so clearly. It's fascinating. When you're with people you care about in the real world, laughing, talking, sharing an experience, your brain releases this incredible cocktail of chemicals. You get oxytocin, which people call the cuddle hormone. It's what builds trust and a sense of bonding. You get beta endorphins, which are basically your body's natural opiates. They create that warm, safe feeling of belonging. And yeah, you get some dopamine too. But now, look over at the digital column. All that rich, complex chemistry, it's gone. The only thing left is that one lonely spike of dopamine.
And Dr. Magin's quote here just hits the nail on the head. Getting a like is like eating a piece of candy. It gives you that quick little sugar rush of dopamine, but it has zero nutritional value for your social soul. A real-world interaction, though, that's like a full, healthy, balanced meal. It's deeply satisfying, and it gives you those essential nutrients, the oxytocin and the beta endorphins, that our brains are literally wired to need. We're essentially filling ourselves up with digital candy and then wondering why we feel so socially starved.
And it goes even deeper than brain chemistry. Just think for a second about the last time you had a really good conversation with a friend in person. You weren't just processing their words, were you? You were seeing the way their eyes lit up, the small smile on their face. You heard the warmth and the nuance in their tone of voice. You saw how they leaned in when they were listening to you. All of these nonverbal cues are a massive part of how we build trust and empathy and understanding. A text message with a few emojis just can't come close to replicating that. It's like trying to experience a beautiful painting by just reading a black and white description of it. You're missing almost the entire picture. So this isn't just about us as individuals feeling a bit down after being on our phones too long. This widespread mismatch between our digital lives and our biological needs is fueling a much, much bigger problem, a full-blown global epidemic of loneliness.
And I want to be really clear here. That's not me being dramatic. That's the official position of the World Health Organization. They have declared social disconnection and loneliness to be a pressing global health threat. They're putting it in the same category of seriousness as things like smoking, obesity, and air pollution. Why? Because the physical damage it can cause is just as real and just as dangerous.
So who exactly is feeling this loneliness the most? Well, the answer is both surprising and really ironic. As this chart shows, it's Gen Z and millennials, the digital natives, the very generations that have the most online friends, the most followers, the most constant digital contact, are also the ones who are reporting the absolute highest levels of loneliness. If that isn't the clearest evidence that having 1,000 online connections isn't a substitute for a few deep, real-world ones, I don't know what is.
Now, the scale of this problem is huge. We're seeing staggering rates of social isolation across pretty much all age groups. But it would be too easy to just say social media is bad, let's get rid of it. The reality is a little more complicated, a little more nuanced than that. The research is starting to show that it's not just about if we use these platforms or even how much. What really matters is how we use them. And understanding that difference is really the key to finding a healthier way to exist in this digital world.
This brings us to a really critical distinction that researchers are focusing on right now, the difference between what they call active use and passive use of social media. And this is so important because this is where we can actually start to take back a little bit of control by understanding which of our online habits are helping us and, well, which ones are hurting us.
Let's break it down like this. There are two main ways to engage online. On one side, you have passive use. This is when you're just in consumption mode. You're scrolling through the feed, watching videos, looking at photos, but you're not really interacting. You're basically a spectator in the digital arena. On the other side, you have active use. This is when you're in participation mode. You're sending a direct message to a friend, you're leaving a thoughtful comment, you're posting something of your own, you're actually a player in the game, not just sitting on the sidelines watching.
And here is the absolute key finding from the research. These two modes of use have the complete opposite effect on our mental health. Study after study is now showing that passive use, just that endless scrolling, is strongly linked to an increase in feelings of loneliness and distress. Why? Well, probably because it puts us in this constant state of social comparison, making us feel like our lives aren't measuring up. But active use, on the other hand, is linked to a decrease in loneliness because it involves direct, often one-on-one interaction that actually helps to build and maintain our real social bonds.
Okay, so let's connect this back to what we saw a minute ago. Remember that chart showing how Gen Z and millennials are the loneliest generations? Well, this chart here helps to explain why that might be. Just look at the data. For both generations, the biggest chunks of their time online are spent on those passive activities, scrolling and watching videos. The active, connection-building stuff, that's a much smaller slice of the pie. It seems like we're spending the vast majority of our social time in a mode that is scientifically proven to make us feel more alone.
So, we've seen how our online habits can make us lonelier. But this isn't just about having a bad mood or feeling a little FOMO. As we're going to see in this final section, this loneliness epidemic has severe, real, life-threatening consequences for our physical health. The bottom line is, the stakes could not be higher.
Dr. Machin's analogy here is, honestly, it's chilling, because it's so accurate. She compares social connection to oxygen. It's not just a nice-to-have thing. It's a fundamental biological need. And she argues that by replacing deep, real-world connection with this shallow, digital interaction, we are literally depriving ourselves of something as essential as the air that we need to breathe.
And the World Health Organization backs this up with some very hard data. The health risks of loneliness aren't just in our heads, they are written on our bodies. Chronic loneliness has been shown to increase the risk of dying early by as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It significantly increases your chances of developing heart disease. It's a huge risk factor for anxiety, for depression, and even for dementia. This isn't just a feeling, it is a physical condition.
Let's just pause for a second and look at this number. A 32% increased risk of having a stroke. This is what chronic social isolation can do to your physical body. It is just a stark, frankly terrifying reminder that feeling disconnected isn't just an emotional problem. It is a physical crisis with potentially fatal consequences.
So all of this leaves us with a really powerful and challenging question. We have built a world where disconnection has been cleverly engineered into the tools we use every single day. The question for all of us is, how do we start to re-engineer connection? Thanks for your time watching the whole video. I'm really curious to hear from you, so please comment down below with your opinions about this topic. Also, feel free to share any of your own experiences with this and let me know what topic I should talk about next. If you found this explanation helpful, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and click the bell notification icon to get notified when I upload my next video. Have a good day. Bye!